You're listening to CherryPickin Entertainment.
Throw me the ball and watch what I do with it.
You are now tuned into the CherryPickin podcast with your host, Andre Cherry.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into another exciting show of the CherryPickin podcast. I am so thrilled and excited to be here to talk a little bit about the College Football National Championship game with you all. Just a little primer, a little preview to get you ready for the game that will be played on January 8th, 2024. If you can believe that we're already in 24 years of this new millennia, which is crazy if you stop and think about that. Happy New Year, by the way, if nobody's told you that yet, as we are now, I'm recording this on January 7th, through a first full week of the new year. When are we supposed to actually stop saying Happy New Year to folks? Does that happen like the second day, third day in to the new year? Are you able to say it through the first week of the new year? I never really know what the appropriate policy or the appropriate thing is in regards to saying Happy New Year. But since this is the first podcast that I've recorded this year, I just want to say Happy New Year to my loyal listeners, to the fans of the show. I appreciate you. Happy New Year. Health and wealth in 2024 is going to be my outlook and mindset for this year, trying to get nice and tight for the summer season, which is slowly approaching. We're in winter right now, but summer will be here before we know it, and I want to be tight and right on the beach, down the shore, or down in Ocean City, Maryland. I want to be right this year, and I want to get my money right too. So I got big goals this year. Hope you have big goals. But this game on Monday, tomorrow, it's a big one. It's the College Football Playoff National Championship game between number 1 Michigan and number 2 Washington. The Michigan Wolverines and the Washington Huskies, they will meet tomorrow night for the College Football Playoff Championship game. These two schools have played one another 13 times, with the Washington Huskies winning 5 of those matchups. 4 of the 12 meetings were in the Rose Bowl game, with the two teams splitting those 4 contests. So these teams have a little bit of a history between each other, and so this is going to be a big-time game. Of course, all eyes will be on it. This will be the only big game tomorrow night from a football perspective. And I'm going to just break down some reasons why I think Michigan will win the game, why I think the Huskies could win the game, and who I ultimately believe will win the national championship game tomorrow night. Why Michigan will win the game. The Wolverines earned its shot to the national championship game by outlasting Alabama in a thrilling 27-20 overtime victory. This is Michigan's first appearance in the College Football Playoff National Championship game. The program is seeking its 12th national championship in school history, which is quite impressive, and it has been a long time coming for Michigan. In fact, this season, the school was able to return to glory and was ranked number 1 in the polls for the first time since 1997, and that's the same season in which it was the last time the program won a national championship. The Wolverines' 14 games won this season are also the most in program history. Now, Michigan, if we look at offense, defense, special teams, they are a very well-balanced team. The Wolverines rank in the top 15 in scoring offense and defense. They average 36 points per game, which is best for 14th in scoring offense, while also leading the nation in scoring defense, only allowing 10.2 points per game. The defense held its opposition this season to less than 15 points in 11 of the 14 games, including under 10 points in 9 games, with shutouts against Big Ten foes Michigan State and Iowa. Now, despite all the controversy that surrounded Jim Harbaugh this season, remarkably, this team is an extremely well-coached squad. The Wolverines are one of the nation's least penalized teams. They only average 26.21 yards of penalties per game, and they're also averaging less than 3 penalties per game, which is outstanding. You know me, if you listen to this podcast for a while, penalties I don't like seeing those. That's a big no-no. And oftentimes you see teams that are penalized 10 times for over 130 yards per game. That really messes with the flow and the rhythm of a team's strategy overall. When you're being penalized that many times for that amount of yardage, that's never a good thing. You're playing undisciplined ball. But Michigan is a team that's very disciplined, very focused, and they are a well-oiled machine. And that's really a great stat to tout, that this team just does it well. They don't make too many penalties. They don't make too many mental errors and mistakes. That's a marker of a really great team in Michigan. Michigan will win this game by playing its brand of football. Quarterback J.J. McCarthy is a leader of this team. He makes very few mistakes. Running back Blake Corum is a player you need to feed the rock to consistently, as he eats up defenses, wears them down, and he runs harder as the game progresses. Wide receiver Roman Wilson, he has been a consistent playmaker and a leader among the Wolverines' receiving corps as well. And on defense, linebackers Junior Colson and Michael Barrett anchor this team on defense. And Junior Colson, that's a sick name. That's an athlete's name for sure. I love that name. I believe the defense for Michigan will be ready for the challenge, but admittedly, they haven't seen a playmaker as talented as Michael Penix Jr. this season, which will be the true test of how they can manage to stack up against this potent Huskies offense. They haven't seen somebody as dynamic as Michael Penix Jr., so they will really have to figure it out early, to see how they match up, to see what they can do to really limit his playmaking ability. But I think from an overall perspective, this team is very solid. Michigan is. Offense, defense, special teams, they are deserving of the number one ranking. They've been a solid team all season out of the Big Ten. They handled its business against Alabama last weekend, which is very impressive. And if you can do that, if you can hang with Alabama, a team that's done it before, a team that is very disciplined, well coached, has great athletes on there. I mean, that's a true test in beating Alabama, and they're going to have to do it again against a very, very good Washington squad out of the Pac-12. So I think Michigan, if they play their brand of football, if they play their Jordan brand of football, they will be well on their way to a national championship. Now, if we look across at Washington, why Washington will win the game, the Huskies earned its shot to the national championship game with a 37-31 victory over the Texas Longhorns in the Sugar Bowl. Washington currently owns the nation's longest active FBS winning streak at 21 games, which is also the third longest in program history. Their 14 wins this season is the most they've ever won in school history, and they finished the regular season unbeaten for the first time since 1991, when the Huskies went 11-0 in the regular season before beating Michigan in the 1991 Rose Bowl game. What's most impressive is how this team finds a way to win. Washington's last 10 games have been decided by 10 points or fewer, in which the Huskies have won all of those contests. So this team, they have a bend, don't break mentality. They bend to the extremes, but they never break. They find a way to win. They find an answer every single time. And this season they have been tested. And that is a marker of a true champion. If you can respond well in moments of adversity and find a way to win, I mean, that's why you're in the national championship game right now. You're playing for a title. And so hats off to that team, the coaching staff, that they never faltered. They always found a way to win. And I think that's the most impressive thing about this team, if I'm being honest. And if we look at their stats this season, the Huskies are number one in the nation in passing offense. Quarterback Michael Penix Jr. is number one in FBS passing yards and pass yards per game. He's number 3 in pass TDs. He's number 5 in total offense, number 11 in pass efficiency, and the Huskies are number 10 in total offense. So you may be picking up a trend here. From an offensive perspective, Washington can play with anyone, and quarterback Michael Penix Jr. can sling it with the best quarterbacks out there. This matchup between Michigan and the Washington Huskies, it has the makings of a shootout. The defense can be counted on to make stops, but the real strength of this Washington Huskies team comes in its resiliency on offense. If Michael Penix Jr. saves his best game of his career against Michigan, the Huskies no doubt will win a national championship. Now, who I think will win the game? In my heart, I'd love to see Michael Penix Jr. and his Washington Huskies pull off the upset against Michigan, and it's very possible that they can do that. I've watched Michael Penix's career beginning at Indiana. We all remember that remarkable play, like a Superman-like dive for the end zone. Like, that one play is just seared into my memory of about who Michael Penix Jr. is and what he can be, his potential. And Indiana has not seen a playmaker like that since the days of Antoine Randall L. If you remember him, he was a playmaker. Michael Penix Jr. reminds me of him. And it was a sad day for Indiana Hoosiers football when he transferred out of the program. He ultimately found a home in Washington and he's been sensational ever since he stepped foot on campus. So I'm really rooting for Michael Penix Jr. I want that team to do well. And they can beat Michigan. They can beat them. They truly can. And if they win, it would be a crazy look and a final victory, final swan song for the Pac-12 conference, which ultimately dissolves itself after this game. Now, if this game goes to a shootout, I think Washington wins. However, I think Michigan has been waiting for this moment ever since they hired former player Jim Harbaugh and Michigan man on as their head coach. Returning to the national championship game and winning it was always a part of Michigan's plan. That was the long game. And I think on Monday night, tomorrow night, Jim Harbaugh and his Wolverines succeed in restoring the legacy of football and bringing a 12th national championship back to Ann Arbor, Michigan. I also think he bounces off for the NFL and the LA Chargers job after he wins this game. Because what else is left for him to accomplish? Not much. He's won the Big Ten. He's beaten Ohio State a handful of times. If he's able to cement his history and his place in Michigan football lore by winning a national championship, there is nothing else he needs to do. There's nothing else he needs to prove. He's done it all. And he can bounce back to the NFL, which I fully expect him to do. It sounds like the LA Chargers job is waiting for him. And I think this is his final mark on football is to win and return the national championship back to Ann Arbor. Historically, Michigan is one of the biggest brands in all of college football. This win would mean everything to the brands of Michigan and the Big Ten, but also college football overall. It's a very good look to have Michigan back on top, and I'm not really hoping, or I'm not really rooting against that happening per se. I want a good game from both of these teams, Michigan and Washington, and I'm just hoping for the least amount of controversy possible at the end of the game. So I want a good game from both of these teams. Emotionally, I want Michael Penix Jr. to win a national championship, but I think it's better for the brand of college football if Michigan does it. If they can win a national championship, I think that's a great story. That's almost like Notre Dame winning a national championship. Like, we've waited so long for it to happen. We've heard that Michigan and Notre Dame, we know that they're good schools. They have a good history of football, but we haven't really seen it on the national stage. And Michigan winning, it like kind of brings it back to all of our memories that, oh, Michigan is for real in football. They are truly a powerhouse team. They're a blue blood. So it's good for the sport. It's good for the brand. It's good for the Big Ten if Michigan can win a national championship on Monday night against the Washington Huskies. So I'll just be watching like a fan. I'll be watching just like all you all will be, at home on a couch, maybe a nice refreshment, some snacks. I'll be waiting for this. I'll be waiting all Monday for kickoff to the national championship game. So those are my thoughts. That's my opinion. What do you think is going to happen tomorrow at the national championship game? I'm excited for it, and I hope you are too. Before we get out of here, I want to take a quick break, but on the other side of the break, I want to just talk to you about some thoughts that I've had about some topics within college football lately. Haven't had a chance to talk to you in some time, but I want to use this opportunity just to talk to you real quick about some things that have been going on in college football. So don't go anywhere. The CherryPickin podcast will be right back.
Want to know what life is really like after the game's all over? Real athletes are here to share their true stories of adversity and triumph every week on After Orange Slices. Even if you don't like sports, pro athletes, former college stars, celebrities, coaches, public speakers, doctors, and all kinds of experts join the show, and there's a little bit of something for everybody. Join me, Bridget, for a slice of inspiration, plus your everyday sports news sprinkled in. New episodes every Friday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, available anywhere you get your podcasts.
Basketball is back. And with that comes joy, tension, heartbreak, buzzer beaters, and elation. It's time to be courtside for every one of those moments, no matter where your team is playing. Short Court specializes in making replica and custom basketball courts for your home, office, sports cave to decorate your walls with all those memories. If you have a picture, we can recreate it. Featured in the 2021 UniWatch Holiday Gift Guide, short courts are made using real wood. We frame and give them an epoxy finish to protect the new centerpiece of your memorabilia collection. With previous customers including Northern Kentucky University, Southern Utah University, 199 Apparel, The Perimeter Podcast with Adam Morrison, and many more celebrating the careers and retirements of their coaches, it's time you visit shortcourts.com for more info and a gallery of our work, or you can send us an email, info@shortcourts.com. Be sure to find us on social media, just search for Short Courts. It's time to bring the home court home.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. These are my quick thoughts. I've got about 5 thoughts that I just wanted to talk to you about. Just wanted to workshop these with you all. My first thought is on the college football playoff semifinal games. I think those games were a success, despite the controversy leading up to the teams that would be included in the playoffs. I think the teams that were represented at the end of the day, when the balls kicked off in the air and the games were actually played, I think those games were a tremendous success. They were competitive, went down to the wire for both of those games. I think that's truly the outcome the College Football Playoff Committee wanted for all of us. They wanted good, meaningful matchups. They didn't want blowouts. They wanted you to be invested the entire game. I think they succeeded. I thought Alabama would have much more of a fight. I thought they would ultimately win that game, ultimately win the college football playoffs. But Michigan did what it needed to do. It's a very good team. They have an opportunity to be a great team at the conclusion of the game tomorrow night against Washington. But I think overall, it was a success, the college football playoffs. And I'm excited for tomorrow night to see what happens next season. We're in 2024 today as I'm recording this, but this season, the next season rather, the college football playoff expands to include 12 teams. The 12 teams in the bracket will include the 6 highest rated conference champions and the next 6 highest rated programs. The top 4 conference champions will receive byes into the quarterfinals. I think it'll be a better system to include more teams, but I am 100% certain it will not be without controversy, because it's never a perfect system, even in March Madness every year for the NCAA in March. For the basketball, March Madness, it's never a perfect system. Teams are left off, teams are left out, hurt feelings are there. I'm a MVC guy. I went to Illinois State University, so Illinois State has been on the fringe or the bubble many, many years. They're a smaller team, mid-major team as it's referred to, and so the criteria for them getting in is harder than any other team if you were in the P5. But I'm certain that there will be some controversy as we get rolling and get moving. I think it's a good thing that conference champions will be included into the playoffs, certainly, but I'm sure somebody's going to be left out. Somebody's going to be hurt. And it's not going to be a perfect system, but it's a better system than what we have. So I'm looking forward to that. My next thought here, I didn't catch any of the college football bowl games, if I'm being honest. I maybe caught snippets here and there, but it was so hard to track who wasn't opting out of the game. And I'm not faulting players for that. That's their decision. That's their right. Because they're protecting themselves. Maybe if they're going to the NFL, they want to sit out the college football bowl game because it really doesn't mean anything. Or if you're transferring to another school and you enter the portal, I get it. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. They have that right to do it. I'm just saying it really impacts these bowl games, as we've seen. Did you watch any of the games at all? Were you invested? I just felt it was hard because you didn't know who would be starting, who's sitting, who's not going to be on a program anymore. So it makes it feel less special. That's all I'm saying. Like, the bowl season felt less special to me this year. And so I really didn't watch. And I didn't catch much of the championship, the playoff games either. I was traveling with my family, so through the airports, I would, watch as much football as I could. I watched most of the Michigan game towards the end. I didn't really catch any of the Texas versus Washington game, but I'll be locked and loaded on Monday night for the championship game. But I'm just saying it felt different this season, and I think it's just because of all the moving and shaking of the portal and people opting out that it didn't feel as special to me. That's all I'm saying. I did watch the DIII Championship game between North Central College from Naperville and Cortland. I believe they're out of New York, if I'm remembering right. That was a back and forth game, much of the game. It was very exciting, a lot of offense. Cortland sealed the victory after North Central College's gutsy call late in the fourth quarter to go ahead for a 2-point conversion instead of kicking an extra point. If you were watching that game, it literally was back and forth. Offenses were just exchanging blows for much of the game. It was very exciting if you like offense. Brad Spencer, the head coach at North Central College, made a gutsy call to try to go for two, to try to maybe break the rhythm and break the strategy for Cortland. And this was like late in the fourth quarter. I think there may have been maybe a couple minutes left in the game. North Central College was not able to succeed in getting that 2-point conversion. Cortland ultimately sealed the victory by shutting North Central College out of the end zone for that 2-point conversion play. I give a lot of credit to Cortland. They won the game, but shout out to North Central College. Shout out to Brad Spencer. I'm from Naperville, Illinois. I know North Central College very well. They were literally in my backyard, growing up in Naperville. Brad Spencer, he may not even remember me, but he recruited me to play at North Central College way back in the day when I was just a young kid. Graduating high school rather. I sat in his office. He was like a coordinator at North Central College at the time, and I sat in his office, and he was trying to pitch me and my family on going to North Central College to play football. I think that school is outstanding. It just, for somebody who grew up in Naperville much of his life, I was ready to get out. I was ready to go. So I ultimately went to Illinois State University. I didn't play football there. I did try out on the team, but every day, I don't have regrets per se, but I do think about it every day. What if I did decide to stay home in Naperville, play football, because it's really for the fun of the game. Like, it doesn't matter what division you are. Certainly everybody has dreams of football glory. If you're a high school football player, you want to play at the highest level. But don't knock some of these other divisions like D2 or D3. They're playing competitive ball. North Central College looked like a legit team. They looked like they were outstanding on offense and defense, but they looked like they had the speed. It looks like they could have competed with any team in football. Honestly, I truly believe after watching that game, they can compete, and they would find a way to stay in games, find a way to win games. And Brad Spencer has really turned that program around. The last coach there as well, Coach Thorne, had turned that program around since when I was a kid. North Central College hadn't seen some of the success that they're seeing now, certainly. I mean, I don't know when I was growing up if they were going to the playoffs consistently or going at all. But North Central College is a team that is going to the playoffs every year. They're competing very well. I think they won 2 national championships already. They were competing for the 3rd national championship in the last 4 years. They lost the game. But you want to go to a school like that. No matter where you are or who you are, what level, if you're playing competitive football in the postseason, that's what you want. And North Central College has done that consistently now for the last few years. Brad Spencer, I'm really happy for him. And like I said, he probably doesn't remember me. He probably won't listen to this, but I am very pleased with how he did and how he's doing. I think the future is bright for North Central College, and I think it's bright for him as a head coach. That was his first loss in 2 years as the head coach, if you can believe that or not. They lost in the national championship game, but he went for it. He went for it. He has the biggest guts I've ever seen in that situation. And you got to be proud for the effort, and I'm sure they will be back next season. And I would love to see them at some point, hopefully next season. But really just wanted to say shout out to Brad Spencer and North Central College. That team is fun to watch. And I remember as a young kid sitting in his office, and he was pitching me to go to North Central College. And he wanted me there. I believe that he wanted me there. And there's part of me wishes I did go there to play college football and to live out that part of my dream as a young kid. But really excited for North Central College in the future and Brad Spencer. He seems like a hell of a guy, and really proud of them. Fran Brown, just shifting real quick, he gets hired as the 31st head coach of Syracuse football. Fran Brown, he was a longtime assistant in college football. His last stop was with the University of Georgia as a DB's coach. Brown, a Camden, New Jersey native, so right across the Ben Franklin Bridge from me. He is one of the best recruiters in the nation. And I'm very familiar with him when he was at Temple from 2011 to 2016, and then back in 2019. He worked with Matt Rule, and Matt Rule, he's now with the Nebraska Cornhuskers, and he also worked under Rod Carey briefly. I felt like Temple made a misstep in not giving Brown a shot to coach the program several years ago, when there was a little bit of a coaching carousel with Manny Diaz and Rod Carey. Do you remember that? Like, it was several years ago. I was there covering that press conference for the CherryPickin podcast. And I remember hearing talks about Fran Brown really interviewing very well. He was close. He was one of the finalists in Temple's decision in naming a new head coach. I think it was the missed opportunity by that administration to not give Fran Brown a shot. He was young. He was hungry. I think he could have sustained Temple in a way that they were seeing success under Matt Rule. I think now they're trying to dig themselves out of the Rod Carey era, and it's not going well right now. They've had a lot of key transfers leave the program, but I truly think Fran Brown could have sustained the program, but all's well that ends well for Fran Brown. He's at Syracuse. He's in the ACC. That's a good spot for somebody of Fran Brown's background and what he can bring to that area. I mean, it's New York, Syracuse, New York, but he still kind of has his inroads on the Northeast and in New Jersey. Certainly, he'll recruit really well. I think that's a good spot for him to start, and I'm excited for his future. Really, excited to see what they can do in the future at Syracuse under Fran Brown. I think he's going to be a tremendous coach. And then another topic here is FSU going to leave the ACC? It certainly seems that way. And this comes from ESPN. FSU voted to sue the ACC over the grant of rights. The school alleged restraint of trade, breach of contract, failure to perform, over which it describes as years of mismanagement that has locked ACC schools in deteriorating media rights agreement while preventing schools from leaving with draconian withdrawal penalties. It certainly sounds, after I just read that it's only a matter of time before FSU officially leaves the conference. If you believe the reports, FSU had been ready to leave the conference for some time, and the Seminoles being snubbed from the college football playoff was the straw that broke the camel's back. In its lawsuit against the ACC, FSU estimates that it would cost about $572 million to leave the conference without a legal victory or a settlement. The ACC's current media rights deal with ESPN expires at the end of 2036. I think that they will probably settle that in some manner. I don't know if it'll truly go through the courts. I think it's a bad look for the ACC if that actually plays out in the courts with one of your members, trying to get out. I don't think that's good for. That's not good for business. It's not good for prospective teams that they may want to join the conference, and it's not good for the current teams either. I mean, to see that play out, if it gets nasty, if it gets dirty, I think it'll probably be dragged out a little bit, and maybe they'll settle in some manner, but it seems like FSU is going to leave the conference, and that breaks my heart. Honestly, I love the ACC. I'm an ACC guy through and through. FSU has been a team that has been the blueprint for a lot of other teams, at least in college football. I mean, FSU was that brand. It was that team. And the fact that they want to get out, it hurts. It's a sad day for me. Because up to this point, the ACC has remained relatively intact. You know, Maryland left. Certainly that wasn't good. But you would hate to see a team like Florida State leave, because what does that mean for the future? Who else is going after Florida State? That's my concern. Like, we could see an exodus to the Big Ten or the SEC by other teams in the ACC if Florida State is able to successfully leave and exit the conference. It sucks. That's the state of college football these days, it seems. If we look at other conferences like Texas and Oklahoma, they're headed to the SEC next season. The Pac-12 is ultimately dissolving after 108 years. Can you believe that? 108 years. That's insane. Only Washington State and Oregon State will remain next season. USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington, they're headed to the Big Ten. Colorado, Arizona, ASU, Utah, they're going to go to the Big 12. Cal and Stanford are going to go to the ACC, and that makes no sense at all. These teams geographically should be where they are, but they are going to other conferences in the Midwest or in the South. And it's sad, because all the tradition, everything that makes football special from a regional standpoint is lost. The lines are gone now. These historic rivalries are gone now. These matchups that have been played every year for over a century, it's gone now. All because of media rights. I mean, I'm truly sad to see these conferences breaking down and these teams bolting for greener pastures, and I say that with air quotes, because it's really become a media rights contest lately. And I don't think it's going to end with Florida State. It's going to continue. It's just sad to see, and it's sad to experience that. And I miss college football of the past. I probably sound like a boomer right now, but I miss watching college football in the late 90s, early 90s. Some of these teams and these rivalries, it's sad that it's all going away because of media rights. But that's the world we live in today, and I guess that's the world I have to accept, but it doesn't mean I have to like it. So it'll be interesting to see what Florida State does and how the landscape of college football evolves over time. But it is a sad, sad day. Well, there we have it, my friends. Thank you for listening to my podcast. I appreciate you downloading this episode. I hope it gets you ready and tuned in for college football tomorrow night. The College Football National Championship game between the Michigan Wolverines and the Washington Huskies. It should be a treat to watch. And I appreciate you rocking with me all season long. I've been busy. If you haven't been able to tell, I've just been busy personally and in my personal life with work and travel. But I love talking college football with you all. I appreciate you listening, and I hope to do this again in the near future. But if I don't talk to you, have a great new year. Hope you have a healthy and happy season. Hope you reach all your goals, and I cannot wait to talk to you again in the near future. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Peace. Happy New Year. Health and wealth in 2024 is going to be my outlook and mindset for this year. Trying to get nice and tight for the summer. Thank you again for tuning in to my CherryPickin podcast. All of my audio content can be found on iTunes and Apple Podcasts. Please feel free to give me a rating if you enjoy listening to my content. If you are looking to interact with me via social media, my Twitter handle is @Cherry_Pickin. That's PICKIN. On my Twitter, you'll also find a link to my blog where I post my weekly predictions and analysis. I can also be reached via email at cherrypickinsports@gmail.com. Feel free to drop me a line regarding what you like about this podcast or what you'd like to hear more of this college football season. I hope you enjoy this series, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks for listening. Take care.